one amazing series of YA novels, an insatiable thirst to relive the glory that is K.A. Applegate's literary masterpiece. This is Fanimorphs, the Dork-Bajir Chronicles. Animorphs number 19, The Departure.
Hello, and welcome to the Dork-Bajir Chronicles, a Fanimorph podcast where we read through the Animorphs series one book at a time, and then talk about it every week. Today we'll be talking about Animorphs number 19, The Departure, a Cassie book. My name is Mikhail, the host.
I'm Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Brayden, the bottle of Mod Podge that my fiance did not close all the way. What the hell?
Before Tessa jumps into her plot breakdown, we are going to have two pieces of fan mail this week.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
The first one is probably my favorite thing I've seen in a while, which is US Dutch Kitty on Twitter challenging Tessa to an expert showdown.
Oh, man. Like Jeopardy style.
Essentially, but I have decided that the new rule is that whoever wins takes the place of the expert. You notice how we called it the expert and not Tessa? Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm so replaceable, you guys. But you gotta promise me you'll get another girl on here. We can't just have three dudes talking about Animorphs.
We are literally not allowed to ask. That's not something we can put on the application form.
Oh, that's true.
Well, the last round in the expert challenge is like an American Gladiator style thing.
Well, then I'm definitely gonna win.
Yeah,
I fight dirty as heck.
It's designed for you to win.
Thank you.
The next piece of fan mail is from, and I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, Toby Goldstein Home. Toby points out that on our Megamorphs number 2 Dork-Bajir Chronicles episode, we definitely got the facts of the nuclear sub wrong, where I originally thought nuclear subs were powered by nuclear power, and Brayden and Tessa told me I was a fucking idiot and said that it was because it was holding nuclear warheads. In actuality, I was completely right, and I allowed myself to be drawn into their web of stupidity.
And this is the lesson, children. Make sure you fact check yourself, because your friends might try to lead you astray. That's what peer pressure is like.
You best fact check yourself before you fact wreck yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's a fact.
Anyways, Toby, among many others to call us out about
I think this was our most popular episode just because of how wrong we were right from the get-go.
I could smell the oh god, I could just smell the self-important jism.
Toby, I love you. Brayden, I don't know what's going on.
Brayden doesn't like anyone but himself.
No judgment. No judgment. I'm just saying I could smell it.
So thank you, everybody, for, paying close attention to our failings.
Please keep jumping in with corrections, because Lord knows we need them. We're flying solo again. We don't have Scotty here to hold us with the facts, with this dinosaur know-how.
Well, now that we've got our public shaming out of the way, Tessa, what did you hit us with that plot?
All right, here it is. It's the departure. Cassie is having some moral failings, or moral quandaries, as it were. It's familiar, but not too familiar. But not too familiar?
No.
Anyway, so the gang attacks a sharing meeting in Battlemorph. It was supposed to be a recon mission, but then they decided, hey, why not fight? So that's where the book starts, is in the thick of the battle. Jake calls to run away. Okay, they've had enough, run away. But Cassie spots an opening, lunges, and rips out the throat of a Dork-Bajir controller. Understandably, this totally messes her up, and she says that she's quitting. Rachel's like, yeah, sure, calm down, have a self-care night, and we'll see you tomorrow. And she's like, no, I'm completely done.
No, Rachel's super freaked out and thought that Cassie was being a dick and calling her evil.
No, that's the literal next day. just this, at first, nobody believes her when she says that she's quitting, because that's something that a lot of people have said, especially Marco. It's something that people have joked about before. So that's what they assume it is. Cassie leaves, demorphs as human, and picks Dork-Bajir flesh out of her teeth and is completely like, no, she's done. She's 100% done. She goes home. She finds out that the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center is closing down because they're no longer getting funding from that cat food company that I'm pretty sure was mentioned in like book 14 or book 9 about Cassie's dad had a meeting with them about funding. But nope, they no longer want to put their money in the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. So that's being shut down, and Cassie's just like, I don't even care. Like, I don't even care. I'm done. Like, I'm just done. So she's 100% quitting. She has a nightmare about being the T-Rex and wakes up from it and brushes her teeth until her gums bleed and skips school the next day. And that's when everyone confronts her about it. It's like, hey, whoa, wait, are you serious? And I kind of want to get more into this in the discussion, but yeah, she's serious. Jake reminds her that if you're not one of us, you cannot morph, because the risks of morphing are okay, like of getting caught. That's okay if you're fighting in the war. Like, you're already being in a risky situation because you're fighting in a war. If you're not fighting in a war anymore, you can't morph. And Cassie's like, all right, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. So she's like, all right, I'm gonna go get some of my chores on. So she rides her horse out into the field and notices a bear chasing a young girl. The horse notices it first, but she races the horse towards the bear, catches the young girl out of midair, and pulls her onto the horse. They never say how old this young girl is, but with Cassie being like 12 to 13 and a half, I'm thinking this girl's maybe like 8.
Oh man, when you're 12, 11 is super young,
Yeah, but just in terms
true,
of like this Karen, as we find out later, she seems to act young. Like, it's described of her acting very young, so I think younger than 10 at least. But yeah, so Cassie just strong arms her onto the horse, but they, race through the woods with the bear chasing after them. And then Cassie gets knocked with a branch and they fall through a waterfall and she gets knocked around. The little girl pulls her out of the river and gives her CPR, so she survives. But Cassie is fine. She's a little bit beat up with like bruises and scrapes, but the little girl has a broken ankle and also a Yeerk in her head. So she's like, hey, I totally saw you demorphing. And Cassie is like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
aliens? What?
Cassie, feigning ignorance
is
for the first half of this book. It's really unconvincing and crazy.
Remember in book 14, she told the government guys that her name was Cindy Crawford and her phone number was 1234567
Yeah.
Like, our girl is bad at lying.
Also, Tessa just revealed to us that she does not know how many numbers are in a phone number.
Dude, in book 14, it's 1234567 which I thought was so dumb because everyone knows a phone number is 7 digits. Cassie wrote down 8 digits for her phone number.
I can't believe I just tried to call our expert out on some.
I cannot believe I am ready for this Jeopardy. And there's also this overarching plot where a leopard has escaped from a private zoo and is all over the forest. So while Cassie helps the girl with like a makeshift cast and crutch, and they're hobbling along, and she's like, I don't know aliens, but whatever you want to say, crazy girl. And they see like a deer stashed in a tree, because that's what leopards do. And yes, that's how I'm going to say it.
Can we have a group vote so that we can decide right now that Tessa's not allowed to keep saying leopard?
Yeah, Tessa, you have to stop saying that.
Okay, but I said jaguar. Come on.
But that was like an accident because you actually didn't know.
But it's fun to say leopard.
But it's not like you say like,
leopard.
Nobody else is having
fun
today.
But I do say Wednesday sometimes, just for fun.
No one else is having fun.
Nobody else is having once. You can do it once, twice, ironically, anymore,
Okay.
and we're
Fine.
this is just
fine.
fucked.
Leopard.
It's like the kid who's like 35 and he's like, guys, remember in junior high when they did that funny thing? And it's like, dog, we have kids. Like,
see, but my funny thing is about me being homeschooled, so womp womp.
Wait,
That
did
is
your
so
mom
funny.
teach you that it was leopard? Like, We can still call Child Protective Services.
will
about
neither
that,
confirm nor deny. So
I'm just saying we could put your mom in jail.
Cassie is really good at
Tonight.
lying, y'all. She subtly changes the subject whenever Karen mentions morphing powers. They try to find shelter as night comes and a storm falls, and the escaped leopard comes upon them as they're in this cave, and Cassie morphs Wolf to chase it away. So the jig is up. They have a night together. They chat a little bit. It's revealed that the Dork-Bajir that Cassie picked the dead flesh from between her human teeth out. That was Karen's brother, or the Yeerk's brother.
Small point. Last episode,
2 weeks ago.
Our discussion, in Jesus, it would have been Megamorphs number. Yeah, it would have been
Megamorphs number 2 weeks ago. Yep.
That's right. I was thinking it was 18, but Tessa wasn't here for that.
No.
Braden says, wouldn't it be crazy if you had a piece of enemy stuck in your teeth?
Wouldn't it be
demorphed?
crazy?
And Tessa was like, oh man, wouldn't that hey guys, wouldn't that be crazy? And
Wouldn't
honestly,
it?
I didn't get it at the time, but I listened back to it after I read this and I was like, oh, it was actually really obvious.
There's there's several times when Braden has just perfectly set up something that is happening in the next book or two. When we did book 17 and you talked about how everyone was having their own problems with fitting in with the group. I'm like, oh man. 3 books later, we're talking about book 19 where Cassie straight up quits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, books are art. Writing is a science. You can track that shit.
I'm going to get a tattoo that says books are art.
Can we sell merch that's just books are art? Hentai fuck beast.
Motherfucker, books
I would
are
also
art.
like
Books
to
are
note,
art.
it's at this point, we find out how Yeerks breed.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah, so 3 Yeerks literally just glom together and fuse. Every atom just becomes essentially one pile of Yeerk, and then they break off into little grubs, which it doesn't specify, but are categorized as different from living Yeerks because it's I guess grub
I think they're larvae, I think.
Grub is a pupal stage. It has to be
Yeah.
a pupae because it specifies that they can then split into 2 Yeerks, which
From the one grub,
I don't know how you would get if it was just growing up and eventually became a Yeerk from a mite or larval stage, then that wouldn't be possible. A grub, when they say grub, they must mean some sort of egg. Or
I'm thinking a little tiny worm, because Yeerk physiology doesn't have to match anything that we find that we know of from Earth, right?
I mean,
I'm thinking it's just
yeah,
a
I
little
guess
baby
not.
Yeerk, but it's just more gushy and less personal
Also,
structure.
but if
Since
we
we're
wanted,
kind of on the topic,
yeah,
I am super excited for Live from the Gardens because we're going to be doing caterpillars and butterflies, and they are
freaky.
very
So fucked up.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
fucked up. When I found out, this might be spoilers for next week, but when I remember viscerally when I found out that the chrysalis is just a skin, that fucked me up.
Okay.
And when I really understood, when I really
hit
understood
puberty.
it, they but they build that and they shed their skin. And they don't.
Oh, man.
They don't build it around themselves like I thought they did with bits of leaf and stuff. That's their skin,
Dude,
Well,
the
it's also
first
silk.
time I found out that caterpillars become butterflies, my testicles dropped.
See, but I found out about the whole chrysalis as a skin thing last week. So
That's my other
I'm
tattoo
still
on my
reeling.
other arm.
And your balls dropped.
Books are art is on one side. Chrysalis is skin.
no, what you
On the
should
other
do is you
side.
should get it in that font where when you read it one way, it's books are art, and when you flip it upside down, it says chrysalis is skin.
Oh yeah, that font that can do that. What?
Yep,
Font
that
that
font
can
that can
do
do
that.
that. Anyway, back to the recap. Karen and Cassie survive their first night in the woods together. Cassie doesn't kill the little girl controller, even though she knows she should. It's a very big internal dilemma that they have. They have a lot of conversations about why do you think you're better than us? Oh, you humans are just as arrogant as Andalites. We Yeerks have a right to infest humans. You're our meat. I mean, you eat pigs, Cassie. Why, this is just like us eating pigs. And Cassie's like, no, it's different. And it's really, they have, they kind of circle around this same conversation a couple of times. And the next day they find some mushrooms, chow down, and then Marco as Osprey finds them.
Marco as Osprey, the hit new comedy. It's the future, and we are all friends. Do. Anyway.
TM,
Okay.
TM.
TM. The leopard comes back. Marco, Cassie morphs wolf. Marco morphs gorilla, and they chase it off. Cassie demorphs in front of Karen, and Marco's like, Cassie, what the fuck? Why are you doing this? And Cassie's like, no, don't worry. It's cool. She knows. Marco's like, what? He walks off to demorph. Cassie runs up to Karen, like checks her, because Karen actually gets dragged by the jaguar or the leopard a little bit and gets kind of beat up. Like, that's gotta be scary for an 8-year-old. But, Cassie checks her cuts and stuff and whispers to her, don't tell him. Because she knows that Marco will not hesitate to murk a Yeerk.
I wouldn't have been scared. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, I would have kicked the shit out of a leopard.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can beat up like at least 3 leopards at
Yeah.
once.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can read fast. Surprise twist,
Books are
Marco, I can read 3 books at once, and that's way more impressive. Surprise twist, Marco morphs Osprey again and eavesdrops on Cassie and Karen's conversation, finds out that Karen is a controller and is ready to, like, fuck her up. Marco is, this is when it's first said in these books that Marco is ruthless. Like, he will see the line from A to B and he knows what needs to be done and he can do what needs to be done. Cassie doesn't want to do what needs to be done. She morphs wolf partially and infests herself.
I think that was actually maybe a bit of a realization on Michael and Karen's part, actually, that, like, I think they wrote...
Catherine? What the fuck?
What the fuck? This is why they don't call us back for coffee, Brayden.
Oh,
Finish your thought. You said
Anyway.
Karen.
Oh,
Anyways.
did I? Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You idiots.
Yeah,
An
I
easy
think,
mistake.
like, in that moment, I sort of read it and I realized, you know what? That's probably something they realized because, like, until now, they just wrote Marco as, like, this goofy jester character, and sort of the idea, like, all this brutality, all the, like, violence, they didn't really address. And I guess I could see a moment where they had to put Cassie and her feelings about violence next to the other Animorphs, and suddenly realized, oh shit, yeah, everyone else is really cool with violence. Like, really cool.
They're
with
not cool
violence.
with it, but they kind of deal with it, whereas Cassie is the one who will call out the line in the sand. The other ones are willing to cross it. They're way more like, oh, I'm going to regret this in the morning, but I'll do it anyway. And Cassie's like, I'm not going to do it.
They're way more cool with violence than any other 13-year-olds I know in first world countries.
I think
Who's
it's
to
just
say
kind
that
of
they're
like
in a first world country, Brayden?
They
It's just a
they are in the
well,
United States. That is not. There is no two bones about that.
It's got to be a
You
conditioning
don't
thing at this
know.
point because, I mean, they were sort of forced to kill people in book 1 even.
Yeah, no,
So
they
at a certain point,
were
it's
thrown
like
into this.
they've seen what the consequences are. They've tasted violence. Like, they've probably learned how to compartmentalize a little bit after the first, like, few weeks of nightmares.
Like we talked about like 2 weeks ago, these kids have got PTSD. They are rolling in the PTS deep, if you know what I mean.
Jake, oh god, fucking damn it. Jake also boils like 100 Yeerks in number 6.
Oh yeah, no,
Remember?
he straight up boils them because he doesn't care.
That's
This is
easy
when
shit. Like,
this is also the book that really
That's
humanizes
easy mode.
Yeerks because it's the first time that you get to talk one-on-one with a Yeerk, and Cassie kind of notices even beforehand, like she notices, as we soon learn, as Cassie infests herself, the Yeerk is named Aftran. Number. And Aftran will call like her host body like innocent and small. Like she'll say like, you know, a bunch of shitty things about this 8-year-old girl that she's infesting, but also call her innocent. And Cassie's like, huh, that's weird. Why would a Yeerk care about that? Like, why would a Yeerk care about that word? Right? So she has this kind of, and she knows it's stupid. She calls it a pathetic, sad, stupid little wish, but she infests herself in the hopes that this little girl, Karen, doesn't have to die for the world, for, you know, just like she doesn't want Karen to die. And she also
Is it
doesn't
at
want her
this
friends
point-
to be sold out.
Is it at this point that we hear about how like the Yeerks and like Vision and like how Aftran got her first host, which we've heard a few times from other Yeerks before.
They
and
love
you know what I was
seeing shit.
Yeah, like it's like, but it's such a weird logical argument for me, which is like, and this is a very like philosophical episode. Maybe we can talk about more later, but how that is like the argument that the Yeerks use. You know, if I was actually really thinking about it, and if you think about it, they're not actually parasites. If you really think about it, because a parasite, by like taxonomical
something
definition,
out of
it can only live by hurting others. But Yeerks can live without hurting others.
I guess
they just choose not to.
They just choose not to because they don't get quote unquote optimal life. They're all boned up about like they get so horny for sight.
But
that
don't
they
you see
want to
like
infest everything.
It's a slippery slope because as soon as
It
you
is a
say
slippery
that,
slope,
it's like,
yeah.
well, I don't
They
know, man.
are-
Like my life would be pretty great if I had a constant source of like factory fed, factory farmed chickens at all times. Well, it doesn't mean it's okay. It just means your life would be better with it.
Yeah. My life would be better
just
if I
saying.
had like unbridled access to do whatever I wanted to do. If I could just like straight up punch someone in the face, then like I would have a,
Like me
I agree with you
right now.
I agree with you. It's like it is a slippery slope that they go into, and it's interesting because I never actually thought about that because the kids just throw around the word parasite, calling the Yeerks parasites, and you don't really question it. But when you think
not.
about it, they're not
They're
parasites.
colonizers. They're not parasites.
They're not parasites. There's some good
Hang on.
conversations that I've seen on Tumblr about like Yeerks as colonizers, and I have seen, I can't recall any of it to mind now, but I've seen over the years just some really interesting conversations on Tumblr about Yeerks as colonizers versus Andalites as that kind of savior complex, and how both of those are kind of ways that people like you can view humanity or certain types of humanity. Like for example, intense Americanism is kind of like two sides of the same coin of like the bad form of American patriotism. You know what I mean? Anyway,
Jingoism, yeah.
there's some really good, and just like nationalism in general, like there's some really good conversations to be had with the like using these alien species as metaphors. But in terms of this book, Aftran morphs Osprey in Cassie's body and flies up and sees cops that are like patrolling the woods, getting into the woods, and she recognizes some of the cops as police controllers. And because Karen, the little girl, is the daughter of a really big, rich owner of a bank. She also spots a bunch of bird of prey off in the distance, and she tells the cops in thought speak to shoot these birds of prey. They are the Andalite bandits in Morph. Cassie has a couple seconds of feeling betrayed until she remembers, hey, Aftran called them Andalite bandits. Maybe this wish for peace could work. And Cassie's talking to her like, Aftran's like, what are you talking about? Peace between humans and Yeerks will never happen. And Cassie's like, no, I don't mean about everyone else. I mean between you and I. So they land.
Yeah.
Aftran goes back into Karen, and Cassie and Aftran make a deal. If Cassie Nothlits herself as a caterpillar, then Aftran will leave Karen and never infest another human host.
Specifically because she notices that caterpillars like a Yeerk forever in worm mode cannot see or hear and are essentially trapped within themselves.
And that's
in the same way.
big reason why Aftran doesn't want a Yeerk slug again, because it's
Although
'cause
I think
it makes her
we sort of
sad.
glossed over this point, but Aftran also mentions there are Yeerks who don't want to fight other people. They don't want to be in a war, but they realize that they don't have the choice. And the specific reason she was a Dork-Bajir for a while and then got the choice to become a human. And she specifically chose to be a non-combatant human because she didn't want to fight.
Yeah.
Which
So-
is a parallel to what's going on in Cassie right now.
Yeah, Cassie
Right.
finds out that there are Yeerks out there, just like she always hoped. Like, Yeerks are multifaceted. They aren't this kind of just faceless evil behind Visser 3. So Cassie morphs a caterpillar, and she's so sad, but she does it. And then the point of view switches to Jake, and he gives a brief description about what he did, and like how they were like, okay, let's search. They have a battle with the cop controllers. He finds Aftran first. They kind of split up because Marco tells him Cassie got herself infested, and they're like, oh shit. So Jake finds them first, and Aftran looks up at him and says that towards the end, she was begging Cassie not to do it, to morph out, that she proved her point. But of course, Cassie as a caterpillar can't hear her. At this point, Cassie the caterpillar has crawled up the leaf and has started to form the chrysalis. And the other Animorphs show up. Marco as gorilla just grabs the leopard out of the air and just like throws it away. And that's the last of that subplot. I was like, Marco, that's so cool. And then they have to make the choice. Karen tries to defend herself to be like, no, Cassie and I made a deal. She said I would be safe. And Jake says that it's up to everyone individually to decide whether or not Aftran will live. And it takes a while. Rachel is the last one to leave, but eventually they all decide, no, we're going to leave her alone. We're going to trust that Cassie trusted Aftran. And while it was a stupid hope, Jake says something about how sometimes, like, I don't want to live in a world where you always have to do the smart, logical thing, the smart, logical, safe thing. Like, I want to believe that you can still do the stupid, hopeful thing and it will all work out okay. And it does. Aftran leaves Karen and it's fine. They move Cassie the caterpillar chrysalis into the garden behind her house. And 3 days later, the chrysalis opens up as a butterfly. There's a little comedic moment where Tobias zooms around the school and tells everybody, and they all immediately get sick and have to leave school.
Marco needs his nicotine patch, I believe.
He needs his nicotine patch. He's like,
Don't stop me.
My boy Marco, light the mood, baby.
And they go and they see her, and Rachel's crying. And at least she's in a good place now with the flowers. And Axe trots up at human morph. Oh, hey, I didn't know that human animals could morph. Huh. Do you think Cassie would want to demorph? And they're like, yeah, Axe, she would want to demorph. Okay, well then she should. And Rachel, like, is about to punch him out. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Somehow, her turning into a butterfly reset the clock.
I have so
Asterisk.
many problems with this.
Mikhail has so many problems with this. Who knew? So they catch that butterfly. Cassie demorphs. And, a couple days later, her dad comes home from work and says that the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center has
specifically,
funding again.
she mentions he's snapping his fingers like a fucking weirdo.
I mean, like, his daughter had been missing for 3 days, and they were losing hope because, as you know, missing person, especially a young child, especially like a 12 or 13-year-old girl, if you don't find them within the first 24 or 48 hours, not good news, according to all of the crime TV that I've seen. So we know that Cassie's dad watches crime TV based on my extensive fan fiction that I've been writing for 12 years. So he's so excited to have his daughter back. And then, he finds out that they've got the funding. The clinic is going to stay open. All's well that ends well.
It's a very, like, sitcom finish where it's like, even though it seemed impossible that everything could return to normal by the end of the episode, it does.
Whip out your credit card,
Okay, but
girl.
I know it's very typical of YA fiction to have a happy ending. But as we will know in Animorphs, there are no happy endings, and I'm just so happy that this one is good. Like, this is a time when, like, that stupid, foolish hope, like, you hope that the bad guy is gonna be true to his word and not betray you. And from what we know at this point, it's true. Everything is okay. And that makes me I was crying when I was rereading it this morning, honestly. The whole conversation towards the end about, like, and Cassie's just, like, hating herself, but she needs to, like, she can't kill this little girl. She needs to
It is
wish.
pretty sad. I'm not going to lie, I teared up a bit. It was probably the best Cassie book
I will say,
we've seen
it's
to
the
date.
best Cassie
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the one where they've got a real good handle on her character, and it's not just, like, in book number 9 where, like, oh no, I'm sad that, like, predators exist, and now I have a friend who's a predator, and I'm kind of mad about it. Like, it's the same conflict, but it's done in a much more poetic and poignant way, I think, here. Like, it's much more grown up, and Cassie herself is more battling about it. Like, she's not as sure with herself, and she's also not as, like, I don't know how to say it, but book 9, she felt almost like, well, I'm upset that that the world isn't this way. Whereas this one, she's like, what the fuck is going on? I'm freaking out.
I think the difference is, like, she solved a problem that was a real problem with her morals. She solved it, as opposed to with the raccoon one where it was like, Cassie,
Skunks.
that's not a real problem.
Skunks.
Sorry, yeah. That's not a real problem. So, like, you solving it with your morals does not like make me feel good about you as a character. Whereas in this
That's
one,
fair.
it was like, nah, dog, like this chick kind of
was
has
a real
you trapped in a way. Yeah.
This was a real thing.
I think
So
my
I thought that was
favorite.
good.
I think my favorite part of this book was that for at least like a good chunk of it, she was trapped in a way that we haven't seen the Animorphs trapped before. Like, put any other Animorph in a room with a Yeerk and have that Yeerk discover that they're an Animorph, they'll just kill him. But they found a way that she couldn't use her morph, that she couldn't use her, that Cassie could not use the abilities that we usually see used as the set piece in this series. They found her kryptonite, and therefore you could write her a good story. Yeah.
I will quick, bit of a different point, but the last book that we read in Megamorphs number 2, Cassie was dealing with, like, half of the book was dealing with the fact that her best friend was dead, that Rachel was dead. And now at the end of this one, we get to see Rachel dealing with the fact that Cassie is essentially dead because she's Nothlit as a caterpillar. And I thought that was really interesting how they had those books go right back to back.
Also, why didn't they just thought speak with her like they do with Tobias? Like, oh, hey, Cassie, it sure sucks that you're a caterpillar. Like, they had no moments. Like, Axe didn't say to Cassie in Mindspeak, hey, Cassie, why don't you morph? I don't know.
Well, okay, and then that brings me to my next point, which is like Axe's whole like, okay, first of all, let's start with the initial issue, which is like Axe not knowing about this like natural
Butterflies.
metamorphosis.
You would assume
I believe he read
them.
I believe he read like all of the encyclopedia series.
No, he'd only read the Farmer's Almanac of that 1 year that they were in.
That's not true. He read the whole encyclopedia.
When was that? Book 8?
Because he was talking about like history, like moments in history and stuff like that.
I thought that was the book.
8.
I thought that was the almanac. That's what they bought him. They went to the mall and
they
they bought him a Farmer's Almanac. And then he was like, "Did you know this cool fact? Did you know this cool fact?" Because they only had money for like the one book, so they bought him a trivia book
about like weather patterns and stuff of the previous year. Why would he know about like old?
I think
wars
it's also
and stuff?
trivia, but I don't know.
They
I've
bought
literally
a book
never
of
read one of those
quotes.
books.
I know they bought a book of quotes for him because
he
in
kept
one
quoting.
of the books, yeah, he has like a bunch of quotes at the top that he thought were poignant. You can't
All right,
always get what you want, but if you try
yeah.
sometimes, you'll get what you need.
This is all irrelevant because the real problem I have is like Axe being like, "Oh, she reset the clock when she morphed, and it's into a butterfly," and at that point, Cassie had like emerged, right? Guess what, y'all? She had been a butterfly for days by the time she got out of the cocoon, so she would have been long past the 2-hour limit. And in fact, even just getting out of the cocoon is more than 2 hours.
Fuck.
Yeah, getting out of the cocoon takes a while. I remember
Michael,
hearing a little
Catherine,
story where
no!
like somebody sees a butterfly struggling out of the cocoon and they decide to like carefully snip the cocoon out of them, and then the butterfly emerges and dies because it's like its little body is too fat. It's got too much gunk in it that crawling out of the cocoon would have squished out of it. I have no idea if that's true.
That is true. It's not the gunk necessarily, but it is like struggling actually because
builds their
the way
muscles,
that they dry,
right?
Well, it's not just that is part of it, I think. I don't know if it works the same way as humans with muscles, but there's a fluid that pumps into their wings to dry it off.
Oh, okay.
And part of that happens throughout the struggling process. So I don't know the numbers, but a lot of butterflies, I mean, this is all live from the garden shit, but a lot of butterflies die coming out of the chrysalis because they're just not strong enough. But the ones that do come out actually benefit from that struggle enormously. And usually, I mean, obviously they survive. But
it's like if
it's
you,
sort of like, you can't live without one and still have the other, if you know
that's
what
why
I mean.
if you put a baby in a sleeping bag and make it fight its way out within the first few hours of life, it's a lot stronger and actually starts walking within days.
That's what my
me
folks
not to
did.
ever let you near my children. Anyways, so just factually, that whole resetting the morph thing was wrong. I do like it because like it's one of those moments that sometimes happen in real life where it's like you really get put through a situation. Like, what does your character do?
Oh yeah.
In presented with a situation, even though we as the audience know, like, well, we know there's more Cassie books coming, so she's obviously not dead. It still felt like a really genuine reaction from the others. Yeah.
When, like, you get put through the ringer, but then you find out you have a way out.
And it wasn't some Elements bullshit. It was some other bullshit.
Hashtag me and Plan B.
Oh, God damn it. There was a story that I heard in a podcast about how this girl was tricked by her friends into thinking there was like a murderer, and they had all driven down to like the river valley at night kind of thing. And then her friends were hiding in the woods. Like there was a group of them, and then more friends were hiding in the woods pretending to be like the serial killer, essentially, right? And they were all running away. And the woman who was kind of the butt of the joke was going over, and she was like, what if someone had tripped? Like, what if one of my friends had tripped? And I was presented with the situation of like, do I save them or save myself? And how angry she was about having to like put up with that.
Also, yeah, cool friends you got there.
Yeah, right.
That's fun. It's not like it's the beginning of Until Dawn or anything.
Yeah, right. Anyways, I just think I like books where they put people in those situations.
Yeah, in those kinds of situations. The Rachel Marco versus everyone else dynamic is strong here, and it's not romantically. Like, I agree, they could work as a romantic couple. I'm glad that they're not that in the book, because now we get all this will they won't they. But just in terms of pure like tactics and ruthlessness, like Marco can see the line between A and B. He knows what has to be done. Rachel is willing to do the difficult things and not understanding why Cassie would take such a stupid and selfish risk. And this is, and like that's a dynamic that will appear in later books. Oops, spoilers. But it will come up later. And
Don't
it's
pretend you
really
care
good
about
conversation.
Spoilers.
It's a really good
give
relationship.
Up spoilers to feel superior. Okay,
I will.
This is a dynamic that you have established.
Also, spoiler, I love that line when Cassie, like the next day when they confront her and she's like, no, I'm serious. I cannot kill anymore. And Rachel sticks her with that line of, you're okay with the world dying as long as you don't have to turn it to me.
Mm-hmm. That's such a good fucking line.
Oh my God.
I felt it was a little bit extrapolating.
I mean,
no, because then Cassie like immediately thinks, yeah, no, she's right. I'm terrified to turn into Rachel.
But also it's like 13-year-old logic where it's like extremes seem like reality a lot of the time.
Extremes seem like realities. Back to bold gravity. Back you don't have any. Now I'm a
That
butterfly.
is not even, I think you got like 3 words right in that. And they were all prepositions. All right. I got a lot to say about this book, actually. I don't really know where to start.
Like I said before, I really identified with Cassie when I was a kid. Because I was the nice one who also liked animals, and I wasn't the pretty one. And like, there's 2 girls in this series. You're either the nice one or the pretty one, am I right? And I wasn't the pretty one, so I was definitely the nice one. And like, I would definitely have had this struggle if I was in Cassie's situation of like, do I kill this kid or not?
See, I don't relate to Cassie. I don't relate to Cassie because I was the pretty one.
I know. That's why you have to have someone like me here, because you and Brayden were the pretty ones, and then I bring another dynamic that's really needed to this podcast that can relate to the viewers and the listeners.
Brayden has told me a few times, like out of context, that he was pretty popular in high school, and I don't know why.
It's because he bit a kid.
I was popular in high school.
Everyone feared him,
but pretty much up to that point, like It's interesting.
I mean, the guy mentions Riley way too much for him to have been popular on any, like, good merit.
Riley?
People were scared of him.
Sorry, what's Riley?
It's the Cthulhu thing.
Real, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
See,
Tessa, you
I didn't
idiot.
want to summon him. That's why I said it wrong. Because if you say
don't
it right,
summon
you summon
Cthulhu
him.
by saying his name. You're thinking of the Yellow King.
She's thinking of Bloody Mary.
You're thinking of the King in Yellow.
I want to say one more thing because I think it's super relevant to this specific episode. If in our show notes, I've put a little image there, and it's from the Animorphs Wikipedia, so I know a lot of people have seen it by now. But it's David Mattingly, the artist, the cover artist. It's his sketch for his idea behind the cover, and I was staring at this when I was doing research for this episode and thinking, just like, I really like that a lot. It's kind of a sketch
beautiful.
illustration of Cassie walking from the left hand to the right hand and then sort of taking off into the air as a butterfly with the same classic like weird patterned neon color background as any Animorph book. But I just thought like if you compare that to the original or like the one they actually printed, I really like the sketch one better. Is that bad?
No, I think the sketch one is better. I like the expression on her face better. I like how she closes her eyes as they turn into butterfly eyes and she like leans forward. It's still grotesque, but it's also somehow not as creepy as the photo manipulation that they have. Also, the photo manip of her on the front of this, she's just doing a pose that makes it easier for them to Photoshop the butterfly wings onto her. Whereas in this one, they kind of grow out of her back, and she just takes off into the air.
They had already photographed all the models, so.
And I think, like, honestly, it's probably a better marketing tool to do the photo manip in the 90s, whereas this is a lot more classic.
I'm just really into this. Book. Yeah. Can we link this piece of art to on our Facebook at all?
I can. Yeah, I'll put that out on the Facebook.
Yeah, people should see this because it's gorgeous, and I love like the neon in the back.
Was that a Vice article that David did, or was it? Yeah, it was in Vice though, right? Yeah, I remember because like you said, like that was more eye grabbing because in the 90s it was literally new technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And so people looked at it and they're like, oh my God, how do they do that? And in fact, today, the only reason Animorphs is really even in this many people's minds
is because of the covers.
Is because of the covers, right? Because there's that meme of like somebody turning into something else.
I wouldn't change the covers for a thing, but I am just delighted when I see artwork that other people have done of them.
Yeah, totally. Also, this was the original artist that made the sketch.
But it's still kind of fan art, right? Because it's not like...
It's a design doc, if you want to call it that, for the original... For the published one. Anyways, that's just a sidebar. Fair. I just thought people should definitely check that out because it's worth seeing. Brayden, why don't you tell us your predictions? Oh, yeah. This is our last book
for quite a while.
We're going to be talking about for a while. So for the next month, for the month of May, I believe it is, we'll be talking exclusively about the Animorphs TV series. So Brayden, I don't know how much you've seen of this or heard of this. I'm sure you've heard that people
I know it exists. Fans. I think I saw a lot of... I think I had wanted to get into the books because they looked interesting, but like just never found the time because I was a very heavy reader when I was a kid and just had stacks and stacks of other shit that I was reading. And so I tried to get into the TV series, but it was never like on when I was home. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. Do you have any predictions?
There are going to be, I'm going to ballpark 5 kids, probably like 2 girls, okay. Two girls who are friends, 2 guys who are friends, and then like sort of a bad boy outcast.
Ooh, I like that. Interesting dynamic.
An alien,
are you
and
ready?
It gives them powers, and then they fight a war together.
It's a good bit. Are you ready for ready for Marco's accent? Because I don't think you're ready for it.
Oh, he has an accent.
Yeah, he's got an accent. It's too good. We are going to... Okay, so just for reader or listeners at home, the way the format for the TV podcast episodes are going to go is we're going to watch 2 episodes of the TV show for every 1 episode of the podcast, which I have seen the TV show, and I can tell you that not that much happens per episode, so we're actually going to be able to get through a lot of it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We've also got... I've got a few guests lined up, including Jared of 2 Nerds in a Basement, also on Collective Legacy. Check him out. But he hasn't seen the show, and I'm trying to look for people who haven't seen the show.
He has seen the show.
Oh, he has seen the show. Okay.
He has never read the books, but he has seen the show.
So this is what I'm looking for, is people who have not read the books, but are going to watch the show. So basically, people who can give us a non-comparison perspective, if you know what I mean. Because I think it's really easy to sit there and watch the show and be like, oh, this was different from the books. That's different from the books. That's different. But that's actually not that interesting, because we can all do that. And people have done that for ages. What I want to hear about is how it's objectively terrible, even if you don't know what the source material is.
I will say I did not watch all of the show. I've only they have way more episodes than I thought they ever did. I think I've only seen
there's 20 something episodes.
I've only seen a handful of them. I'm really excited for because I don't quite remember what Visser 3's human morph looks like, but I kind of remember, and I'm just really excited to see that.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the whole month, frankly. So we're going to be doing.
It's going to be great.
1 month, so just normal episode releases every Monday like usual, except we'll just be talking about the TV shows. So the first 8 episodes, that's right, no Live from the Gardens. We'll just be covering the first 8 episodes in May, 2 episodes per podcast episode. Okay.
And then when we come back, it'll be our 1-year anniversary of doing the pod.
That's true.
How many episodes of the TV show are there out there?
I think there's like 25 or 24 or something.
There's a lot more than I thought there was.
There's a lot. We've got a lot of episodes ahead of us. So the way we're going to handle all the episodes is like throughout the run of the series of the podcast, we'll do these months where we just watch the TV show and kind of binge on it and get outside perspectives. So that'll happen throughout the year, and we'll probably wrap up the TV series not too long before we wrap up the book series. So they should end around the same time. Anyways, now that I've got that out of the way, next week we'll be doing our normal Live from the Gardens about Animorphs number 19. It's a little different because we'll be talking about the caterpillar and the butterfly, which arguably are the same animal, but maybe not. According to Axe, they're not, I guess. And then, like I said, the next week after that, we'll be talking about episode 1 and 2 of the Animorphs TV series.
You can find more of our stuff on our podcast page at collectivelegacy.org or on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Facebook.
Make sure to like, share, subscribe, gather, hunt, and further disseminate your seed upon our iTunes and other subscription services.
Thanks, Brayden.
Yeah.
Nice. I like how you didn't make it weird and sexual.
Why would I?
Yeah, that was...
Sexuality isn't weird,
No.
Tessa. You are just a bigot.
Oh, shamed.
Dun, dun.
For the Fanimorphs, my name is Mikhail, the host.
I'm Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Brayden. God damn it. My cat's at it again. Oh, no, wait. That's just some shit.
And
Never
this
mind.
has been Fanimorphs, the Dork-Bajir Chronicles. If you're looking for more Fanimorphs content, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for Fanimorphs, the Dork-Bajir Chronicles.
Hi, hello, welcome to the ad for the show. I'm Mitch, the host of Wank Talk Radio. On this show, I talk to interesting people about interesting things. Do you need to know more than that? Okay, fine. Pretty much we'll talk about whatever my guest is interested in or passionate for. Sometimes it'll be silly, sometimes serious, sometimes a bit of both. Whatever the topic is, hopefully we'll find a way to make you that much more of an expert about it. You can find us at collectivelegacy.org, along with some other equally awesome shows on our network. New episodes of Wank Talk Radio are every Sunday and Thursday, wherever you find your podcasts. Let us know what you think on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Wank Talk Radio. That's WENGH Talk Radio.
Wank Talk Radio.
Brought to you by
Collective Legacy.
a podcast network.